Thank you. I don't have any slides, so I will just talk. So, Paul, thank you for your lecture. It was very interesting. And I think you're right that learning analytics is a very complex endeavor. I think that it is ethically fraught, that it is far from context-free, of course. But I would like to take you up on your ending offer for conversation about learning analytics. And I'd like us to think about why learning analytics exists at this point in time and what it's trying to do, and accepting that there are a variety of agendas, certainly, but I think there are noble agendas as well as less noble agendas. And I'd like to focus on the noble agendas behind learning analytics as well. Because I think we have to remind ourselves, why does it exist? I think learning analytics is an attempt to try to respond to long-standing problems in education, higher education, school education, and to respond to the fact that higher education has moved rapidly from a very elite system to a mass participation system and is approaching universal participation in just a few decades. And as a result, higher education must accommodate a much wider variety of students, and that is in theory a response to social and economic trends that demand post-secondary education for a much higher proportion of the population if they are to thrive as citizens and workers. And we've seen over the last few decades a lot of tension around who gets in and who doesn't get in, who thrives, who doesn't thrive, who graduates, who doesn't graduate, who becomes employable and a contributing citizen and who doesn't. And conventional elite higher education that I would characterize as very artisan, very bottom-up, very idiosyncratic, is not, I think, best placed to accommodate mass participation. And hence we have this tension. And learning analytics is, yes, and often crude, but I think at times noble attempts to say, can technology help? Can we, through technology, through insights from technology, through better gathering and interpretation of data, can we better understand what is working and what is not working in the classroom, and then can we somehow intervene? So no question that that's a very sort of simple framing of a very complicated problem, but I think we have to respect the underlying problem. And simply saying, and I don't think you're saying this, but I think to simply say, look how complicated this is, look how ethically fraught this is, the danger is we become paralyzed. We can do nothing because everything is potentially problematic. And I think that's just as dangerous as giving into the utopian visions of sometimes naive learning analytics companies and gurus who think education is a simple problem to be solved and just no one until them has come around to figure this out. So we need to occupy a middle ground. We need to respect the complexity and the ethical dangers, but we also need to remember that there are big problems to be solved, and we don't want to give the impression that simply perpetuating a elite, artisan, bottom-up approach to teaching and learning is somehow okay if we just got more money from the government or regulators just left higher education alone. You know, I don't think that's a sustainable or practical or moral solution either. So, to me, learning analytics, if we view it positively, is pushing higher education to become comfortable with its mass role and responsibility. And in that sense, it's useful. I think the responsibility then on higher education is to say, okay, how can we come to a hybrid solution here? How can we respect our traditions and appropriate sensitivities, but also acknowledge where technology can help, where data can help, and can we start to be more systematic as institutions, as faculty members, as systems in applying teaching and learning good practice. I mean, I would argue the literature on teaching and learning is quite consistent and not characterized by dramatic differences of opinion. I'd say the tension in the literature is how do you apply that consistent theory, not that the theory is contested and no one really agrees on what good pedagogy is. And learning analytics to me is an attempt, at least, however flawed, it's an attempt to say, can we be more systematic about what we know works, at least at a high level, accepting contextual differences, what we know works at higher education level. And I think from a student point of view, I think you're right that students should be concerned about who's using their data and they should have a voice. But equally, I think they rightly assume that institutions know what they're doing when it comes to teaching and learning. They are naive as students, inevitably. They look to institutions to know what good teaching and learning is, to apply it consistently, to offer good value for money, and are often not best placed to... Yes, they have a voice, they have something to say, and that's often helpfully counterintuitive and refreshing. But I do think the onus is on institutions and faculty members to take their responsibility as pedagogues, if I can use that word, seriously, rather than their teaching and learning responsibilities as secondary to their role as researchers or as experts or as administrators. I think that is the tension here, and learning analytics is simply a response to that tension. And we need to, even if we are dissatisfied with the current iteration of learning analytics, and I think no question it's early days, we need to push. The results are limited, but as you said, 2011 is not long ago, and higher education has had a lot more time to adjust to mass participation. Again, only a few decades, so again, that's not a long time in the history of higher education. But I think we need to avoid a standoff. We need to avoid the companies over here with their suspect agendas and higher education over here wishing it would all go away. We really need to occupy a middle ground, and then I think collectively we can make some progress, because I think it is about application, not so much about I think we know what the problem is, and I think we have a lot of clues about what the solution is. We just don't seem to have the right combination of administration, management, bottom-up buy-in, institutional willingness, money. That equation seems to be what's missing, and I would like to see more attention focused on how to address that, having accepted your very valid critique about what's potentially fraught with learning analytics. But I want to see more attention on moving forward.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair. Thank you so much.